I've been beekeeping for 1 month, and I am going to share some tips that I've learned as a new beekeeper that will hopefully help out other new beekeepers. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Whistle Thicket. Tom here. So I am sharing 10 things I've learned about beekeeping in my first month. And of course, I've done a lot of planning before I got into beekeeping, but I've only had my bees 1 month exactly today, I believe. So I'm officially a 1 month beekeeper. There is a lot I have learned, but the first number one thing I've learned is to get a bee mentor. That's right. You need to find someone local to help you with your beekeeping. All the beekeepers I've met have been very, very helpful, but it's really important to get a bee mentor. It is great to watch videos. Watch my beekeeping videos because I'm learning, but you should see if you can find someone local, find a beekeeping club. There's lots of clubs in America for beekeeping. A lot of counties, at least where I live, most counties have a beekeeping association. You can find a beekeeper that's local that's going to help you. Why is this important? Because every area is different according to the climate, according to the weather, according to the region. It's important to get a local bee mentor. If you can't find somebody, of course you can watch tons of videos. Watching videos is important, but I feel with beekeeping, having someone local there is really going to help you out. So that's the number one thing I would do. If you want to get into beekeeping, find someone near you that's already a beekeeper. Number two, beekeeping is expensive. It is probably the most expensive thing I've done with homesteading, not including horses. Horses are super expensive, but that's what my wife does. That's what Amy does. Though I am learning to ride a horse, actually. But horses are expensive. But beekeeping is pretty expensive to get going. A hive, brand new, I think. If you wanted a hive with at least 2 supers, I think really you need 3 supers. That whole setup is probably going to be at least $250 brand new. And then you need to get bees, and bees are anywhere from 125 to, I've seen 185 for a nuke, and I've talked about the difference between a bee package and a nuke before. I'm linking that video here if you want to know the difference between a nuke and a bee package. Now, luckily, I was able to get some used equipment, which I know there's some controversy on used stuff, but I think if you clean them well, you're okay. And my bee mentor was able to loan me some of his, I guess, older hive bodies and nukes, or not nukes, colonies, and his supers and some of his frames. So I have a head start and an advantage. So it did not cost me as much to get my hive equipment going. Number 3, at least in my opinion, and what I've learned, is that the first year of beekeeping is probably your hardest. So why is that? First, you don't know anything. You got a big learning curve. But there's other reasons why your first year of beekeeping is the hardest. So of course there's the price, which I have just mentioned, but there's other reasons. So number 1 to that, 3A I guess, you don't have any honey. So you need honey to feed your bees throughout the winter. So I am feeding sugar water right now. I don't have a food source for my bees. So that's one of the reasons why your first year is the hardest. Another reason is your bees are brand new and you can't split your hives. So if everything goes well, the next year you're not buying more bees. So of course there's lots of hives that are lost every year, and I've heard last year was a big hit for most people in the southeast, especially 60 to 80% hive loss. But if everything goes well, next spring I will have honey, and hopefully I will have split a hive, and I'll have 3 hives, and hopefully I won't have to buy bees next year, but I bet I will because of colony collapse. But if everything goes well, your second year is easier. Another reason why your second year is easier is you have drawn comb. That's one less thing your bees have to do, and that's a lot of energy they're expending is drawing that comb out. But you can use that drawn comb next year, and your hive has a jump start, and you'll have more honey, you'll have more bees. But your first year is going to be hard. Luckily, my bee mentor was able to give me a couple of his drawn frames, so my bees did get a little bit of a head start. Tip number 4 I've learned: wear your bee veil. I know lots of people, they're like, I don't wear my veil. And maybe I will be like that eventually, but the only time I've been stung was when I didn't wear my bee veil, and when I didn't have my smoker, which that's number 5. Have your smoker ready and use it. Lots of people, they're like, I don't need my smoker, I don't need my veil. But the one time that I didn't have either of those is when I got stung. And I got stung twice, and I wasn't even really doing bee stuff. I was a little bit. I was doing a quick little inspection, and I was doing some more sugar water, but then I was picking some asparagus, harvesting some asparagus, and that's when I got stung, when I didn't have my veil and I did not have my smoker. So that's 4 and 5. Use those tools. Bald guys, if you're bald like I am, you want to wear a hat underneath your veil. I guess depending on the type of veil you have, but some of the cheaper veils, which I have a cheaper veil and a nicer veil that goes over the hat I wear a lot, but those bees will sting you through your head, bald guys, so be careful. That hasn't happened to me yet, but I know it will happen to me soon. Hey, buddy. Tip number 6 that I've learned is be aware of your flowers in your area. If there's flowers, you got potential to have honey going, and your bees have food. So flowers equal food for your bees, but every region has different trees, and there's different times that those trees are flowering. So for example, where I live in the mountains of North Carolina, we are about to have a big flowering, which is the tulip poplar, and that's when the honey flow is happening, according to my mentor, in about 2 weeks. So we'll have nectar, which is going to translate into lots of honey, hopefully, for our bees to produce. So I've been really paying attention to the flowers in my area. I've done this before, but now I have a bigger reason. So we've already had cherries and dogwoods have flowered. I don't have a lot of those. I have a decent amount of cherries, but not dogwood. And now we have the tulip poplar is about to go crazy. And behind me, this whole mountainside is like 70% tulip poplar. So I'm really excited in a couple weeks for that honey flow, or that nectar flow, to translate into some honey time for my bees. Tip number 7, it's not just about the honey. Again, honey is important. Honey is big. Honey is what you want, but there's other things you can get from your bees that I'm still learning about. So I'm excited about beeswax. Why? Because I'm making mushroom logs. Right now, I'm using cheese wax, which is great, but I have to pay for that cheese wax. Come next year, I hopefully will have lots of beeswax that I'm not going to have to pay for, and my mushroom logs are going to be that much cheaper for me to make. But there's other products. You can get propolis, bee pollen. You can make products with your honey, with your beeswax. like mead and lip balm. Again, I don't know how to do that, but the potential is there, and that's what's important, the potential. Tip number 8. There's a lot of advice out there. There's so many people giving advice on Facebook, bee groups, but what I think is important is keep it simple. There's a lot to learn about beekeeping, but I think your first year, just keep it simple, take advice and learn from others. That's really important, but just keep it simple. Bees are going to make the honey if everything goes right, but of course there's so many things that can happen. But just keep it simple, be patient. There's a lot to learn your first year. I'm learning stuff every day, every week, but just keep it simple. The last thing I've learned is that beekeeping is fun. It's a little addicting, and there's tons and tons to learn. That's what I like, is learning stuff. So if you are interested in being a beekeeper like I was, just make it happen. But it's probably almost too late to start beekeeping this year. So if you're into beekeeping, you gotta kind of plan ahead and get all of your supplies. And I'm sure in the north you can still get some nukes going, but really you're almost at the end of the season to start beekeeping for most of America. So have a great day, keep on homesteading, and we'll see you in the future.